Hey guys, I have a movie for us. Or we can watch something from our favorite corporate overlords.
Man.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
That's enough of that.
so what movie did we just watch?
Okay, so today we popped into our little DVD player, Trading Places.
Happy New Year!
It is about a well-off man named Winthorpe.
Winthrop.
Eddie Murphy.
And then Eddie Murphy, whatever his name is.
Billy Ray
Valentine.
Yes.
Hey, baby, what's happening? How you doing? Once you have a man with no ladies, you never go back, baby. I know what you're thinking. You see Porgy and Bess? We can make it, baby. Me and you. Bitch!
But it's set at Christmas, not in February.
Yes.
Set in Christmas and New Year.
Yes.
December.
So we have Eddie Murphy and we have Dan Aykroyd as the main characters in this movie. Dan Aykroyd's rich and well off in the commodities market.
And spoiled.
And Eddie Murphy,
Silver spoon, everything handed to him.
and Eddie Murphy is
A bum.
a bum on the
Hobo.
street.
Yeah.
On the street, who's trying to grift people. He pretends to have no legs.
Yes.
No legs and blind.
No legs and blind. I forgot about that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And apparently he was in the 7th Battalion.
Green Beret.
Agent Orange. He was
Yes.
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange.
Police, we've had some complaints about con men pretending to be blind and crippled. Oh, I'd love to help you, man, but I ain't seen nothing since I stepped on that landmine in Vietnam back in 72. What unit were you in? I was with the Green Beret, Special Unit Battalion, Command. I was Agent Orange, that was my name, Agent Orange, Special Agent Orange, that was me.
So the whole plot of this movie is that we have these two characters and they need to trade places. And the reason they trade places is because our two villains of the story, I forget what their name, Duke and Duke.
Duke and
yes.
Duke. Yes.
Mortimer and what was the other guy's name?
God, the names are just amazing.
They look like the evil
general.
Muppets old
No
guys. You know, those,
Sattler and
like,
Waldorf.
They definitely are.
Oh my god.
They so are.
yeah.
Yes.
Some more racist.
Hey man, don't I know you two guys?
Step inside, nice and warm in here. Whiskey. All you want.
Look, man, I ain't falling for the same trick twice, all right? You ready to get in the car and have me arrested for stealing it?
Anyways, we have Duke and Duke, and they are in charge of the firm Duke and Duke, and they have a little wager, a little bet that they want to do, a little science experiment to make these two characters, Winthorpe and Eddie Murphy, trade places. And the idea and the whole plot of the movie is to see, like, would someone like Dan Aykroyd flip-flop if he, like, would he turn to crime and that sort of thing if that was the environment that he grew up in or lives in, essentially. And then Eddie Murphy flips and goes and instantly become well off. Will he adapt to his environment? Will he become a gentleman of sorts, you know? And so that's the idea of the movie.
Given the right surroundings and encouragement, I'll bet that that man could run our company as well as your young Winthorpe.
Are we talking about a wager, Randolph?
This movie would not fly nowadays, even though it is a comedy.
I think that's what's fascinating about the movie, and actually, it's a great, like, this is a great example of a great comedy movie that we don't see at all. Like, we don't see this type of humor at all. I was laughing my head off. I thought this was great. Like, why don't we have these kind of movies anymore? I mean, this movie was directed by
John Landis.
John Landis. You know, he did Blues Brothers and that sort of thing. So
And got Jim Belushi in this movie, too.
yeah.
John Belushi.
Either way.
We don't talk about Jim, his unfunny brother. It's all about John. Animal House, John.
Yeah. So it's just interesting that this kind of movie just doesn't get made anymore. And I don't know why, because it's so funny. I mean, there is some like dark.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, no, like this is a surprisingly deep movie for
Yeah.
being as good of like a comedy as it is.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of really good like, oh, that's what you're trying to say. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Like, yes, racism is bad, thanks. Like,
I don't want Winthorpe back after what he's done. You mean keep Valentine on as managing director?
Do you really believe I would have a nerd run our family business, Randolph?
Of course not. Neither would I.
But I guess beyond the plot, like, it's just well executed humor.
The humor is kind of timeless, just like the last comedy movie we saw, Christmas Vacation. Like, it's a straight comedy with a plot, and we don't get those movies anymore,
No.
which is weird.
I think our two leads, Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, just have like a really interesting chemistry during this. Even though they don't spend a whole lot of time together, it's
Yeah.
just like their contrast. Every scene they're in, just their contrast is so apparent and well delivered. Like, I mean, for a comedy, this is a well acted.
well, I mean, and it was like an arc for each of them where Aykroyd becomes more outspoken and like more like a normal human being, and Eddie Murphy becomes like, it does actually like, he does like mellow out a little bit because that is actually what happens. And so it's like interesting to see them like overlap basically.
Yeah.
Like that was actually really fun to see
Yeah.
in terms of character development.
Keep the change. Think big. Think positive. Never show any sign of weakness. Always go for the throat. Buy low, sell high. Fear, that's the other guy's problem.
As far as raising the stakes, everything's always raised, even to the point of like, all right, what kind of movie is this? And like, it's still really funny, but it, like I'm talking about like the train scene near the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It goes completely off the rails.
Took a left turn at
The
that.
filmmakers are having the time of their lives.
Oh my
with this. You
gosh.
can tell.
You thought this was a serious movie? No.
Look what happened to me, huh?
Look what happened to me.
Sometimes you look so human, it gives you the creeps.
They were very strategic on the jokes.
Yeah.
And not being like 80s centric.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, they're not making reference humor. Yeah.
It's very situational.
yeah, it's
and
very
like,
situational and-
so how would this person act in this situation? You've just been handed over extreme wealth, and this person has lost everything.
Right.
What
yeah.
would you guys do? Well, I would stuff a salmon down my Santa suit. I would, wear platform shoes and a dirty Santa Claus suit.
God. Yeah. Wow. Oh my god.
The whole salmon.
Oh god.
It's gonna smell great.
Oh no. That's so bad.
So, I have to ask.
Favorite part of the movie? The fourth wall break. That's what you're gonna ask.
I mean,
Like coffee that you had for breakfast, wheat, which is used to make bread, pork bellies, which is used to make bacon, which you might find in a bacon and lettuce and tomato sandwich.
That was fantastic. Like, it just showed how much like they didn't actually care or kind of believe in the characters. Like, for them, it was just this like in.
You're talking
what
about
they
our
were creating.
villains of the story,
Yes.
Duke and Duke. They didn't care much about you. I mean, it was
They thought that they grabbed someone who was not smart at all.
An idiot,
but,
yeah.
right.
Then demonstrates like both Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd are like pretty smart people. Like they're able to recognize what's going on. They just have different kind of perspectives that they're coming from, and then those perspectives kind of cross and kind of mesh together.
Right.
Yeah, coalesces into screwing over Duke and Duke with orange juice. So, okay, let's talk about the end of the movie. So, they defeated the villains. So, the villains of the movie were pretty much doing insider trading on orange juice, Because they got insider information about like, oh, the crop yield in the South for oranges. Like
Insider misinformation.
which gets to misinformation, which is they thought like, oh, like there's gonna be like this bad winter storm. Let's buy a whole bunch of oranges.
Hey, how could you do this to us after everything we've done for you?
Oh, see, I made Lewis a bet here. Lewis bet me that we couldn't both get rich and put you on the poorhouse at the same time. He didn't think we could do it. I won.
I lost. $1.
Thank you, Lewis.
So was it like they fought insider trading with insider trading?
Right? That's what I was thinking. It was like they just kind of just did the same thing, but just successfully.
Yeah. Because they swapped the briefcases in the train.
Right.
The ridiculous train sequence, which was just to swap the information around. So then they got the information.
Right.
And then they used it against Duke and Duke
Right.
to bankrupt their company.
Right.
Exactly. For $247 million somehow.
Okay, but can we talk about that whole sequence? Because they swapped the briefcases, then they swapped them back.
Right,
They just stole both briefcases.
No,
They
no,
just
no, no.
stole the documents.
Then in the bathroom, Dan Aykroyd must have just swapped some papers out, and then he had his entrance.
Right, and
which
brought it
was
and switched it back.
Phenomenal, putting Robert Downing Jr. to shame.
I certainly hope there's enough space on the
And we're there.
Coco from Cameroon. Do you remember me? It's Lionel Joseph.
Lionel! From the African Education Conference, right?
African Education Conference. Conference at the Haile Selassie Pavilion.
I remember the pavilion, we had big fun there.
Cultural appropriation everywhere.
Oh my God.
But that's what's amazing about the movie is that there's no shame. They will go anywhere for humor, and it is gold. Because it's in high demand now, I feel like, to have these kind of movies because none of them are being made. A lot of people don't really know what, like, I would say, like, smart humor is.
There used to be movies from 10 years ago that they would make where you watch the bloopers and it's like there were 6 other takes that were as good as the one they went with for the movie.
Right.
And it was pretty obvious that like these probably mostly for the most part weren't scripted. And so you kind of saw some of that in here with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd as well.
We will have a picnic, yeah?
Yeah.
You will help me get my rucksack down for the Swedish meatballs?
I kind of would, because you didn't tell.
All right, so it's come to it. Would you guys throw back to this movie?
I'll definitely throw back.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I'll do it every year because you don't want to watch a comedy like every single year because then it won't be funny anymore. I would say every other year I would pop it in.
It's just one of those nice hidden gems that's fun to show people.
Oh yeah, no, I think thrown back, I would definitely watch this again at some point.
I think it's kind of one of those movies where the only rewatchability is because it's so ridiculous and you forget how ridiculous it is.
Yes.
Or you convince yourself that like, no, it's a serious movie. Like it's like you read the back and it's like this wager and you forget about like the gorilla, the train, like the heist part of it. And like that is all totally ridiculous. And so like I had forgotten about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like it's an okay movie. But then rewatching it again, I'm like, no, this really is like totally ridiculous. So I probably would watch it even less than like Armand was saying.
Really? Wow. Okay.
This was one of those movies that I grew up watching, and it's been a long time since I've actually seen it, so I was really excited to go back to it. And I'm excited to say that I would throw back to this a lot going forward. It just has that gold humor that is missing from today's culture. So most of us would throw back to Trading Places. So check it out at your local Blockbuster.
Yeah. Why'd you throw it away?
Yeah, I thought you
what
said
the
you'd throw
hell,
back
man?
to it.